meteorologist Casey Cloud coming on the air right now because we have a flash flood emergency now for Valdosta. You know, that rain was breaking up earlier on, but it has filled in here over that region again, you know, and now that is really causing some big time problems. We were hoping that wouldn't happen here, but we had some more action coming on in here in the overall meteorological pattern. So not good news at all. I know this polygon here, that kind of a dark red type of color here, indicating that right now. The maroonous type of box with the really black line within that, indicating a flash flood emergency here until about 3:30 in the morning. So you really need to remember to turn around, don't drown right now. This is taking really, sadly, you know, a turn for the worse because we were not expecting it to quite get to this type of level, and because of the way the rain has kind of filled back in, it has now. So let's go ahead and show you what we're talking about. I'm going to loop the radar on another source here. And I know the polygon on here kind of said the emergency a little bit better. On the other mode, it's just going to show them all as if they're the same. But I just kind of isolated to one box, so the worst of the danger is on this. But the other mode not going to be quite like that. But there's the loop. You saw how it kind of broke up a little bit, and you'll see it more that loops back around. But you see the heavy rain, and it kind of relents. And then all of a sudden, that action that's moderate there with some heavy downpours within it just becomes very heavy with the effect of the moisture coming right across town. So this is a turn for the worse for Valdosta here. It already had significant flooding, but now a catastrophic threat, according to the Weather Service in Tallahassee. There's now reports here in the last few moments that several homes have been cut off from flash flooding, prompting the department there, in terms of the emergency management department, I'm sorry, let me read that again. Several homes have been cut off from flash flooding, prompting the fire department to evacuate portions of the area. So a flash flood emergency now here in play until 3:30 a.m. So this is not good. I think it's the first one for Valdosta since Adalia. At 11:04, emergency management reported heavy rain across the warned area. Between 5 and 8 inches of rain have fallen, and the expected additional rainfall is 2 to 4 inches in 4 hours. Major flooding is already occurring. If it's necessary for you, you need to seek higher ground here. And this is infecting areas around Valdosta, I-75 at exit 16, Moody Air Force Base, Bremerton, Valdosta Airport, I-75 at exit 11, and Kinderloo. So very serious stuff now for Valdosta. We were not expecting it to get quite this bad. It has gotten very, very bad now for Valdosta. A flash flood emergency here now for Valdosta. The highest level of flash flood warning. So you need to take this very seriously around Valdosta. This is an extremely dangerous situation with major flash flooding in progress. There's been flood reports over the last little bit, and these, you know, are from a little while ago. So this meaning, you know, it was already bad. Whatever I tell you here in the next few moments, it's probably just gotten worse since this report and these, you know, individual reports came on out. So as we're looking there was flooding on East College Street in Valdosta at 10:30. That was probably worsened. As we're looking here, water entering a home there in northwest Valdosta. At 10 o'clock, 1 inch of water is reported on the floor of the home. You kind of get the idea there. So not good stuff. Not good at all here, folks. A real escalation of things. As we're looking here around Valdosta, you see Bremerton in there, but Valdosta is where we have what the Weather Service is saying a true emergency now. There was already reports from the Department of Highways, State Road 7. It was flooded in both directions there with all lanes closed at Old Highway 41 at 10:05. At 10:04, reports from 511 Georgia of flooding I-75 southbound at Old Clairville Road, exit 13, the left lane blocked. So you're hearing, you know, that was already bad. It's now getting worse here because unfortunately we've had rain redevelop really right over town here. Another wave of moisture coming in. Some areas already, when we were on earlier, had 7 inches of rain. Now we're probably talking about some areas that are going to end up with over 10 inches of rain here in a pretty urban area over a fairly short period of time, and that's caused for a devastating situation. It's at night. This could be deadly here, folks. We already have issues still lingering from Hurricane Helene. That was in late September, and now we have a potential catastrophic threat here. A potential for, in some instances, not everybody in Valdosta, a lot of folks will be, relatively all right. They, have a lot of rain in their yard, but some folks had the potential for damage, that is just catastrophic here, and that is not good news. We're talking about, some homes could have, several feet of water maybe in them. Not out of the question in the worst case scenarios here toward Valdosta. So when I say several feet, like 2 feet, something like that here, as we're looking, as we're tracking this. So you got to be really careful as we're watching this flood emergency now for Valdosta. A lot of the rest of the area not really getting into much rain here. But that one area there, I mean, we do have the other flash flood warnings we've been touching on, but this one right here is where we have the, cause for extreme concern. Very serious stuff. I know we had some weak rotation earlier, just looking to see if there's any now, maybe a little bit, but not at, not as tight maybe as it was trying to show up for a couple frames earlier on. But there is the potential for gusts about 40 miles an hour in here. But again, a serious situation, folks. Very serious stuff. You really got to be very careful around Valdosta. This is really serious. I mean, there's not that many more ways I can say it, but we need to be with you because this is now your storm total, and everybody in this grass area has gotten at least 5 inches of rain here. That's really escalated over even when we were on just a little while ago, and in the last hour, another 2 to 3 on top of, what was a lot there in that, I guess it was 9 o'clock hour when we were tracking things, the bulk of that. So, not good here. Very serious. Let me go ahead and go over some safety tips now. Bear with me. Let me get that pulled on up. Give me just a moment. Okay, let me turn our clock off real quick. So, this is some information on the flood alerts. So, a flood warning here, is one thing, but this is a flash flood emergency. This is a situation that is a catastrophic threat that, triggers another phone alert here. Obviously, setting off weather radios, there's a lot of urgent concern. Again, there's reports of several homes that have been cut off from flash flooding, prompting the fire department to evacuate portions of the area. So that is not good. This is, in some neighborhoods, potentially now a matter of life and death. Others, it's just heavy rain, getting the yard wet and like very saturated. But in some cases, this is something more than that. Let me go to our screen here where I have this polygon isolated where it truly is the worst. Let me just say that. So that's when we have the emergency, in play, the highest level of flash flood warning here for Valdosta in south central Georgia. You don't get that there very often. I know with Adalia, they had the emergency. That's about, right off the top of my head, the only other one I can remember for them over the years. There may have been others, but that's the other one I remember. Granted, that stuff at least came through a little bit quicker than this. This does not look like, we had to let up and we thought we wouldn't get the redevelopment, so maybe it will weaken unexpectedly to some degree, but because this is a tricky pattern to forecast when you have the way moisture's coming in like it is. But, if it doesn't weaken unexpectedly, this could linger on for a while here. This could be very problematic, in that it lingers and makes things worse, worse than they already are. So, again, a flood emergency here for Valdosta, for Lowndes County, but really they technically say Valdosta proper is where it, has taken that escalation here. This is very serious stuff in south central Georgia. As you're looking here, I mean, you're talking about US 84, you're talking about State Road 31, US 41 here. I mean, going over some of the big roads, but some of the smaller roads probably even have more problems here. Again, this is a flash flood emergency, catastrophic flooding for Valdosta here, folks. You need to take this seriously. Let me put on some of those safety tips here again. We had these up earlier on in our earlier coverage. You just make sure, if you have to move to higher ground, if you're out, you really shouldn't be right now, but just avoid the areas that are flooding. There's some, areas that might be almost everything that's flooding now. Just try to turn around. Don't drown here in this set of circumstances. This has turned into a higher end threat, than, what we thought really, could be the cap here. Because this is not happening that often in our area, to be quite honest. This is the worst type of flash flooding threat that you can have, and it's happening right now for Valdosta. This is really serious here, folks. You gotta take this seriously. And that water could be rising. This could cause creeks and streams to rise rapidly in some cases, potentially, depending on exactly where the rainfall, its heaviest points are. That's not what you want to hear. Not what you want to hear. Let me go ahead and zoom on out here. This is the emergency one. Let me take it from the other source now and put it on this source. It says all the boxes, but that one there is where we have, this one here, where we have the emergency. An emergency situation here. We don't get those around here very often. Let me just continue to look at things here. Let me just continue to track. We're at 11:28 right now is the time. It's your Wednesday, November 6, 2024. Again, flash flood emergency in play. Again, just trying to make sure I have a good handle on what's happening. Let me see here what else we might be able to kind of gather. Again, very dangerous situation here. I know it's just the influence from Raphael, not directly from it, but indirectly here. We have some of that moisture coming on in from Hurricane Raphael, which is just north of Cuba. Again, just trying to make sure you guys have everything that you can here. Go ahead and check some more information. We're live right now on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. You also have Twitch. Again, this is very rare in our area, flash flood emergency. Very rare. Again, I'm checking all my different sources. Just a one-man band here, but we need to be with this right now because this is an emergency situation. I mean, really don't want folks out on the road right now. Slow down if you can, if you are out. Trying to stay on top of things. Just checking for some more information here. I mean, we're talking about, rainfall totals that have to be approaching 10 inches now. around Valdosta. Let me go ahead and zoom on in again. Okay, so we have the flood emergency. Look at how, these reflectivity colors here. Some purple's even showing up. That's awful to have over all the rain they've already gotten. I mean, you're talking about a situation where the storm drains, just can't handle all this rain at this point. And some of it's getting in the homes, no doubt. There's reports of rescues again, evacuations at least. As we're looking there, the fire department's doing them. So this kind of sounds, more on the border of rescues here at this point. As you're looking around Valdosta, Lowndes County, South Central Georgia. For perspective, let me go ahead and see where that is here within our 62 counties. I know there's Bradford in the yellow there. That's where we're at. But Lowndes is in South Central Georgia. I know a lot of you guys, like let's say you're headed to Atlanta. That's probably the way you're going from North Florida. Through Valdosta on I-75. But also if you go to Wild Adventures, that's where that is in that area in Lowndes County. So just some geographic references there. As we go ahead and keep looking. There's some very heavy rainfall. And that's straining in. This is not good. I mean, we're already at the worst level of flooding threat, but that doesn't mean it can't get worse, obviously. I mean, there's just so much, you can take before it's already an emergency. And then when it's an emergency, you already passed the level of it being, in the fashion where the water can recede. And now you're in a situation where it's going to get worse and worse. Water levels are just going to get higher and higher until this spigot of moisture, this train of rain stops here around Valdosta. Again, this is a turn for the worse, an escalation, not what you want to see. We're going to keep looking at this. I'm going to see if we can get some cameras up. I don't think we can, but I'm going to check. This is just so serious at this point. I know there is a new flood warning, flash flood warning, for Lanier and Lowndes. It's a considerable one. And it is for the areas off to the east here, an extension. So this one's now considerable. It was a base one earlier on. It is now a considerable threat. This one right here. So around Lakeland, Georgia. You have Lake Park and then Moody Air Force Base. Life-threatening in that area as well. Not catastrophic, maybe like Valdosta, where you could just have, in some cases, at least, really bad damage to homes in terms of the water damage getting everywhere with the intrusion. But again, trying to give you the latest. And try checking some cameras. I think we just got another update. Okay, that's on something in the tropics. Let me go ahead and go. It's just a discussion, but let me go ahead and check here behind the scenes some of the traffic information, see if there's anything to note. Generally can't get the Georgia cameras, but we'll try because this is just so serious. Just trying to give you the very latest here. Looks like we are getting some of them. I'll see if there's any that are really showing it. I don't see any right in Valdosta, but I'll look kind of on the edge of town. Just looking at things here. Bear with me. Again, flash flood emergency in effect. Again, it's not everywhere in this area that, it's just catastrophic. Don't get me wrong, but in some of these areas here, very significant. At this point, with the water just backing up and there's no place for it to go. I'll go ahead and check some more information. Just effort in the latest information on this flash flood emergency provided Austin until 3:30 in the morning. Trying to keep you safe. Just so much moisture coming right in on them. I mean, some of these areas getting about 10 inches of rain at this point. Again, a flash flood emergency in play. Just effort in some cameras here. It's not going to say a whole lot, but this is going to be a Georgia 511 camera. And I'm not sure why our clock's doing that, but I'm going to go ahead and switch on over here to another mode. It's kind of messing up actually now, but we'll try it for a moment. This is a Georgia 511 camera, so that's the source. You can definitely see that rain. There may be some flooding, but it's hard to make out. It's at night there, making things kind of tough to see, but not great conditions there. That's just to switch the color, but some nasty conditions there for sure. Again, flash flood emergency for Valdosta. Trying to keep you safe and informed. We'll try to put our clock back up now. There we go. As we continue along. This is 1 hour. Some of these areas in this grass area, 3 inches of rain. So a widespread 5+ in that gray corridor storm total. Which, I mean, that gets into Berry and Lanier as well. Even a little bit of Brooks there. Maybe a little bit of Cook there too. Again, continuing to watch this situation. Let me go ahead and kind of zoom on out a little. We have all that moisture in our storm, direct, impacts from the storm. They've been happening around Key West. They're kind of now, maybe losing some of that with this going a little bit further off toward the west. So that's good. Hasn't been too bad down there. It's been worse up here. I mean, just with the overall weather pattern, that moisture just kind of getting sent this way. And there's your hurricane, Raphael down there. But as you look up here, this is where we have the flood emergency. So it's indirectly associated, not directly from Hurricane Raphael. just the overall pattern. I mean, you think of storms, I mean, like Joaquin in the past, Hurricane Joaquin, they had so much flooding in South Carolina. They weren't getting hit by Joaquin, but the overall meteorological pattern, forced that into them. This kind of, in some ways, is somewhat similar. As we go ahead and continue to watch, this is 12-hour rainfall estimates. The light yellow is at least 7.5 inches there. Granted, that's been over less than 12 hours. You see some of these orange areas here. That's toward a half a foot of rain. Again, it could be doing a little bit, as we talked about earlier on. Again, just trying to give you the latest. Remember, turn around, don't drown. So very serious stuff here. I mean, this is sitting where Leonard and I wrap it up here. We don't like to generally stay on this long for just flash flooding. When I say just flash flooding, I mean, we're not seeing tornado warnings, different thunderstorm warnings, but this isn't just your basic flash flooding. This is an emergency situation here for Valdosta. So you really have to take heed. Flash flooding is one of the deadlier threats that sometimes, really gets underlooked and underplayed here. But it's the hazard that, is the reason we're on the air right now, because this is so serious. It's just, so significant for Valdosta right now. Just so problematic for those folks as we're looking at things there. Again, you gotta take this seriously. Still very heavy downpour. Let me bet it. I think it might be, not quite as heavy as it was in the last few minutes, but right in town, but right in downtown, but might not matter that much. It's already really bad, and this type of rain rate is just gonna make things worse. And the weather service Tallahassee this time, maybe 5-inch rain rates in an hour. Your radar not necessarily showing that exactly, but I think it's underdoing it a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised. Some areas probably gonna have a foot. Some areas are gonna have a foot probably in the rain gauges here in the next little bit if they don't already. That's really problematic. Really problematic. Dangerous situation. Very serious. Take heed of this around Valdosta. Again, just not good. If this was starting to slack off, we'd wrap it up. But it hadn't really slacked off too much yet, so we got to stick with this a little bit longer on Valdosta with the flash flood emergency in play. One thing I will touch on while we're on the air, I mean, there's some different weather stories. We have, of course, Raphael and the direct impacts from it down here. Then you have indirect impacts from it up here in the overall meteorological pattern. Then you have a winter storm out here, and as I put this in the winter mode, that's snow. Parts of New Mexico, Colorado especially. And then out here, you can't see it on this map. I'll put dew points on though. It's a catastrophic wildfire threat. So, not great. We're talking about really serious wildfire danger today, setting up these dew points so low because it's just so dry, bone dry out there. We had a wildfire set up that, according to media reports, caused injuries, caused homes to be destroyed. There in the northern parts of Southern California, and the threat is going to last maybe into Friday potentially. Particularly dangerous situation in terms of it being so dry over there, so windy. There's Santa Ana winds. Not a good combination. Really, really bad stuff out west. As we see all the higher numbers with the moisture content out here to the east, a big contrast, of course. And we'll just continue to track things. There's the hurricane on radar, Hurricane Raphael. Again, not going to be really a direct impact for 99% of Florida. The Keys have had, what you would call technically a direct impact here. But that's about it. It looks like the periphery stuff does actually been more problematic in terms of what I mean by that. Let me clarify. Of course, the core of the hurricane is the Cat 3 over Cuba, and that was really bad for those folks there. worse than what we're seeing in our area, of course. But what I mean is this stuff right here hasn't amounted to the rainfall total we've seen in our area. Some of those communities around Key West, maybe 3 inches. Up here, it's a much different story. And much more rain has fallen here, and that's what I mean by that. So that periphery stuff with the core, not near as bad as just the overall indirect impacts from the meteorological pattern associated with Raphael, Hurricane Raphael. So to go ahead and zoom back on in, you can see over 7 inches of rain there. Again, I'm sure it's probably closer to a foot at this point. It just keeps getting worse and worse there. Just keeps getting worse and worse. Not what you want to see, not what we want to hear, not what we want to talk about, obviously, but that's what we're having to deal with here tonight. A sobering situation. Really nasty stuff there around Valdosta. Again, we went off for a while because the rain had really broken up and the worst had went to the north, and we had some more moisture come in, and it really strengthened. The downpours really became widespread instead of isolated and scattered in the overall pattern here with the accent that's associated with this convection here. So you see what I'm talking about? You had the one wave and then look like a lull, and maybe you get some rain coming in that'd be moderate, maybe a heavy downpour, and instead it's just a constant area of heavy downpours all over the place here. An absolute turn for the worst here tonight in Valdosta. I mean, that one box, the last one, that pops up there, that's the emergency box. This is an emergency situation here, folks, for Valdosta. A terrible escalation. Again, some folks will be alright. I mean, it's not like a hurricane. They just got hit by a hurricane in September, so that, makes it a little bit more easy, per se, for maybe this rain to really take advantage of vulnerabilities. I mean, some homes have these blue tarps on them. This much rain is going to cause some of those blue tarps to probably just collapse, I would think, at this point. I mean, depending on how secure they are. I mean, this is not the type of rain you want to deal with if you have a blue tarp. And that's just, covering a hole in your roof. Not good news for those folks in Lowndes County tonight. As we continue to watch the progression with this, watching that rain trail on in, maybe getting just a little bit less in terms of the highest rates, as they're not peaking out maybe quite as high as we look toward Valdosta, but it's not much of a drop off here. Not much of a drop off. And still probably making things worse here. These are still high enough rates to make things even worse for Valdosta. Again, we're still with you right now. I'm just checking all the different sources here with this flood emergency for Valdosta. Again, we're working on our computer very hard tonight because of the magnitude of the situation and how it's really taken off here around Valdosta, around Lowndes County. If you guys have any questions or comments, just let me know. I know I saw where somebody tweeted this here, and they were, concerned that folks may be going too fast, and it's so hard to see that reduced visibility. The reduced visibility in play. It would be best if folks went out of the road tonight. Looking on social media here. Just the water getting higher and higher in some areas. Not what you want to see. I mean, we're getting reports of several homes cut off. Evacuations having to take place by fire department officials. So serious, so dangerous in Valdosta in Lowndes County tonight. An awful, awful situation. I mean, on top of what's already been an awful period here in terms of Idalia last year. We had a flash flood emergency then, but this is worse, I would say, at this point, I would think, based on the rates I've seen with the rainfall. Then you had, of course, Hurricane Helene come through. More than likely, that's going to be kind of the peak there. And then this event tonight. Which is really serious. Sticking with you here, 11:52 p.m. on this Wednesday. I know Echols County was under a flood advisory. That's been expired. They really haven't got into that as much over there with the heavy downpours. In terms of a royal being long lasting for most. And so that's a positive. Again, still watching this around Valdosta. Still very heavy rain around US 84. Just on the east side of town, going out of town maybe, northeast side. Howell Road, very heavy there still. Winds maybe gusting to 40 miles an hour, not out of the question. It's just trying to rain. It does seem to be a little bit weaker, but it's still very heavy and very nasty. This heavy, heavy downpours here making things worse, worse and worse on the roads there in terms of the rain and that water just getting higher and higher. So still tracking this for you. I'm hopeful that if the trends continue, this does look, still very nasty, but I'm not seeing as much this widespread red as you can see here. It was right over Valdosta, widespread. If that trend continues, it may wrap it here pretty soon because, it's a situation. It's not a tornado situation where we can just look at velocity and things just change so dramatically sometimes from one scan to one scan. So we'll stick with you a little longer here, but really nasty around Valdosta. I know, flash flooding according to Weather Prediction Center, likely to continue with slow-moving acts in there. Just not what you want to deal with. Some shells 2 to 2.5 inches an hour, though it might be more than that even. And just totals just continuing to add up. Continuing to be problematic. It's causing big problems. Trying to give you the latest here. So much excessive rainfall concern. Let me go ahead and zoom back out a little bit. See all the flash flood warnings in play. This one's the emergency here. This one here is also the 330. It's a considerable box, considerable danger. One to the east is to 345. It's a considerable life-threatening flash flood threat. Lanier and parts of Lowndes. Further to the north, their base warnings is just a 1, but the one here is a considerable one for Brooks and Lowndes. That was an area there where that encompassed a more widespread zone than this one where the emergency is. This is an emergency. This is considerable danger. This is considerable danger. This is a base warning to the north where you don't see as much rain. It's kind of going a little bit further east, and the pattern is really tricky because stuff will look like it'll do one thing and it kind of switch on you a little here. But Ben Hill, Berry, and Cook, Irwin tipped till 3 o'clock in the morning. The warning to the north. You can kind of see it was looking like stuff was going to go more north. But then we kind of have some of that accent really wanting to get a little bit more off toward the east there in south central Georgia, almost into some cases at least southeast Georgia. But on Valdosta, stuff just wanted to really trend in, coming in out of Florida to some degree. As you look at that radar imagery, still not really letting up, to say I think they're going to be improving that much, though. So that's what makes things kind of tricky here. We'd like it if this area here ended up looking like this, where the rain was just gone here within this box. But that's not exactly happening right now. So that makes things, a little bit more of a cause for concern. So, again, still on top of it. A lot of the area not getting into the moisture at all. Tomorrow, rain chances will still be pretty high, but some areas won't get into it. Other areas could get a half foot. We showed that to you earlier with some of the model runs. I mean, we're showing some stuff closer, maybe, just east of Tallahassee, maybe, or something like that. But we shall see. So this might not be the last time we hear from me before, or schedule an update late Thursday or late Friday, because I'm going to have to come on for more of these flash flood warnings, or even higher end of flash flood warnings. Hopefully it's something that's a little more manageable and what we can just, maybe if we have to, if it's not just a base flood warning, but an actual flash flood warning, but it's manageable enough that we can just post it on Facebook and then Twitter/X versus having to actually come on here and stay with you. But the situation when it's a flash flood emergency, we have to be on the air for a little while, at least with you, depending on the severity of it. So that's where we're at right now. I know we should get another update here soon on the 12-hour estimate, and it's probably going to be closer to 10 inches, I would think, with this so much that's even fallen in the last hour here in toward Valdosta. So, not what you want to have to deal with, obviously. One hour rain. Some of these areas in the white, 2 to 3, but then some of the areas in the gray is 3+. And it's, again, probably underdoing it. So, significant cause for concern here about Valdosta. Again, if you guys remember, let me throw it up here if I can. It may take me a second to get to it. But of course, we had Helene. I just wanted to emphasize to you guys just how impactful that was. Reiterate that. So significant. Imagery and still, with the color is really, what we're seeing now is red, maybe redder in some cases. It doesn't do it justice exactly, but it's more even hard to find than a dahlia was. And this went right into Valdosta and caused devastation. Winds, especially with this and that part of its track. Of course, the rains up toward the Carolinas kind of sort of had something, event out ahead of the storm, out ahead of Helene that really made things bad, and the storm itself just caused a catastrophe. Well, this is something out ahead of Raphael, per se, in the meteorological pattern. We're not going to get the core Raphael, but this is still an emergency situation. This is still bad. Gotta be some of the worst flooding. At this point, with this much rain, this is going to have to be a situation where we've had some of the worst flooding in years for Valdosta. They already had some pretty bad flooding earlier in the year, I think it was. Had a flash flood emergency last year, but at this point, this just keeps continuing like it is. It's got to be up there with one of the worst flood events Valdosta's probably had here this century. So, not what you want to deal with. Okay, we're getting more information in now from the Weather Service. Let me go ahead and relay that. Try to give you the latest. So US Highway 84 east of I-75 is flooded and impassable in Valdosta. In addition, numerous homes are flooded there as well, according to emergency management. So that's not the information you want to hear. Numerous homes have been flooded in Valdosta now from this flood emergency. So again, really serious, sobering stuff here tonight. Taking that escalation about as high as you can go here with a flood threat in our area, at least. I mean, it's not, the level of what it was in the mountains. Don't get me wrong, the topography played a big role. If they had this much rain up there, I mean, like they pretty much did with Helene, it just completely, caused whole communities to be washed away. It's not that type of level of flooding, because you really can't have that in most of our area here. Just the way the topography is, that wouldn't, really happen from, rainfall per se. I mean, surge can be different. Just saying, I mean, storm surge can be different, but the point is, you can't really get that here in our area just to completely wash everything away, but it's still very bad and very serious here as we're looking at things about the worst they can get in our area. Of course, so sobering. As I continue to give you the latest. This is rainfall, and this is an update here in a moment, but I'll show you South Carolina here even. That's a lot for them. It's not an emergency or even a considerable alert, but it's just some rain that's been consistently problematic in these areas here. Southeast of Columbia, South Carolina. We're talking about a foot of rain in some of those zones. So this is not great stuff. I mean, you see that the 12-hour rainfall doesn't so much rain at all around Jackson or St. Augustine. But it's just that corridor there, south central Georgia, where we've had, in some cases, really lives being upended here at this point, with numerous homes being flooded in Valdosta. Very isolated, but very severe event here for a zone within our covered area. Isolated, but very severe. Again, a lot of you guys, 70-80% of our area, are probably wondering, like, what's going on? It's not raining here. It hadn't really rained much here. Like, how could there be this much? But this is just the overall pattern. Sometimes you can get stuff like this to form and be very serious. Checking the 1 hour rainfall. And that was another 3 inches in an hour. I mean, at least. And probably closer to 4 or 5 based on some reports earlier. It adds up here, and it adds up very quickly and very, much so in a problematic way. But even some lightning down in here, so if you're hearing those rumbles of thunder, that's making things even more scary. Nighttime, very heavy downpours, flooding in your community. And, I mean, you're hearing that rumble of thunder here from time to time, and some winds picking up. Okay, there's the update. I don't want to see it, but I thought it was going to show it. It's now sowing, and this is even less than 12-hour period, but it's sowing 10 inches of rain, 11 inches of rain here, radar estimated. So, talking about a situation here, folks, that right in here, I mean, this is 11 inches on radar pretty much. Let me find the spot that's the closest to 11 right here, I guess. Be closest to 11 inches and less, a lot less than 12 hours, really, as we're looking. The bulk of this would be a lot less than that. And we're talking about a situation here. Radar's going to underestimate some of this. So it may be getting, I said 12 inches. You may be getting some of these rain gauges here closer to 13 or 14 inches in a very short period of time, really, for our area. This is very, at this point, this is getting, to be one of the higher end flood events we've seen maybe for a region, a small area of our viewing circle here, since at least we've been doing this at cloud weather. And I want to say it reminds me a little bit of some of the flooding we had in a few spots in like Hurricane Debbie. Of course, this year in Hurricane Debbie. I was actually thinking of Tropical Storm Debbie in 2012, but then I was going to bring up Hurricane Debbie this year. That's what happens when you have two storms that have flooding in the same area, 12 years apart, that have the same name. But the point is, Debbie this year, we had the flooding in Live Oak. That was bad. It's reminiscent of that. It's also reminiscent of some of the flooding we had in 2012 in Debbie, areas like Wakulla County. And a lot of area got widespread totals, like 15, 20 inches. It was a little over a little bit longer period of time. This is over a shorter period of time in a much smaller zone geographically, but still not what you want to deal with here at all. just unrelenting here. This could, be something where folks, their lives, they're in danger. I mean, literally, sadly, we don't have this very often around here, but we legitimately, could lose some lives tonight because of flooding here, like this to this level at night. This could really be something where we don't have generally. I mean, I'm just trying to think back just over the years, flood deaths. I mean, we've had some in hurricanes and the like. It's kind of a direct and indirect comparison. You kind of put them in different batches, and this isn't directly from Raphael, so it doesn't maybe count for Raphael. We've had flood, deaths in direct ways from tropical cyclones, but having trouble in our area, at least remember indirect. I mean, Joaquin caused a lot of direct in a lot of indirect in South Carolina back in, I think it was 2015. But again, just continuing to watch things here. And that was Hurricane Joaquin, if you're wondering what I'm talking about. Indirect, the pattern there. It's kind of the pattern here with Raphael. It's not the direct impact. There's Raphael down there, but the indirect impact. The ecological patterns. So, again, that's what we're kind of down with right now. As we look, as we track, it's a little bit, I don't want to say lighter, but not as heavy. I mean, dramatically, grammar-wise thing to say, grammatically, not dramatically, it's been pretty long evening here at this point, but grammatically, right thing to say, might not be the exact right thing to say here in this type of circumstance because it's still pretty significant. Again, looking here around Valdosta, I mean, that just doesn't look great. I mean, all that heavy rain on the edge, it's a little lighter, but it's just still a pretty big cause for concern. Let me go ahead and keep checking some of the different information. Continue to check some of the details here. It's been a tough year again, as we alluded to, Valdosta, Dahlia, then Hurricane Helene, and now this. Still monitoring it. Looking at Lowndes County. Just checking some sources. Really, really bad stuff. $12:10 is the time right now on this Thursday morning, this November 7th, 2024. Flash flood emergency continuing here for Valdosta. We were hoping we wouldn't get to this level. Thought we might get considerable. We got considerable. Didn't really think we would get emergency, but we ended up getting emergency because the second wave of moisture really came in, in full force. And it's caused some really big problems. Very big issues here around Valdosta. I mean, folks literally having to leave their homes, having to flee their homes because of the seriousness of this. That's not what you want to deal with. That's not what you want to see. That's not what you want to hear. But that's exactly what's happened. Exactly the storyline there. Trying to keep you up to date here. I'm just going through all the different sources. Let me go ahead and continue here. Looks like there's a question on the other platform. Let me go ahead and pull that up. So, Lori, you're wondering about what's the tornado outlook here because of Raphael. So, not something where it's going to be too significant tornado-wise. More about the flooding here at this point, it would look like the heavy downpours and the like. But we're in a situation here where it's not something that can be completely ruled out. It wouldn't be directly because of Raphael, but indirectly. We haven't had any tornado warnings yet. We got pretty close earlier around Valdosta, ironically. But let me go ahead and pull up our model guidance here. No formal risk here of tornadoes. So that's good. For the local area, there is one in and I kind of, we have so many different areas. The Keys and very small portion of Southwest Florida has had one. It's not necessarily going to continue probably into tomorrow. So that's good. No, formal risk around here. Again, it can't completely rule it out in a very isolated fashion. Like you have multiple ways to receive alerts, but it shouldn't be something that's too concentrated. There's a small risk, by the way, in the pattern, not the Raphael pattern, but just weather as we're looking out toward Texas, Midland, and the like. But let me go ahead and put on our forecast model. So this is 2 a.m. or no 1 a.m. with the time change. 6C there, and then as we go ahead and look, I mean, it's not completely out of the question. One of these could produce something, but it seems unlikely. Let me go forward here. I had to go a little bit back so I could get through the model more. This is just taking you about lunch hour tomorrow with a simulated radar. You see into the afternoon some convection. It varies. The models have really had a tough time pinpointing where the convection will be. So very tricky in that regard. Very tricky in that regard. But so again, so just to kind of wrap that up, tornado threat is low, not completely zero, but there's no formal risk except for a little bit down toward here, and most of that potential would seem to be kind of bleeding off toward the west here at this point. So that's why we had the former tornado risk around Key West. That's a little more, higher up. The dark green low one. This is just general thunderstorms theoretically here in this light greenish color per se. Again, because of the span, didn't want to completely run a very quick spin up. Mentioned that back on Tuesday on Facebook and Twitter/X. We almost had something like that around Valdosta here this evening. I don't think it quite happened like that, and we still can't completely rule out something that pops up real quick, but it shouldn't be something that is affecting, 99% of us. 99% of us is not going to see tornado threat come to fruition. As we continue to watch here now, just trying to give you the latest. Let me zoom back in. So it is breaking up some right in town, but we have some pretty heavy rain to the east. Back to the south and west is still pretty heavy trying to come in. My hope is this will kind of start to, maybe hit a wall a little bit atmospherically, and that it starts to break up more into the areas that are just so saturated at this point. It makes it a little harder to produce the heavier downpours, but it's still going to be pretty nasty here. It's really not going to be improving. maybe just slightly, worsening still as we look ahead. Probably not rapidly worsening like it would have been maybe in last hour, but still, in some neighborhoods, still it could be slightly worse, and you have to watch for creeks and streams as well, depending on where you're at and which ones really might get filled up here at this point. So that's something to deal with. That's something to take note of here for sure in this flood emergency. So this flash flood emergency goes until 3:30 in the morning for the Valdosta area. Catastrophic flood potential. And we have other warnings here. This one's a base warning to the north. It goes to 3. This one to the east is a considerable threat. It goes to 345. And this one here to 330, the considerable here, if you can see what I'm saying. This is the catastrophic one. The highest level of flash flood threat, though, right in there. So that's where the danger is the highest, and where folks have literally had to evacuate because the flooding's been so bad, with homes being cut off because of flash flooding. So that's not what you want to hear. And numerous homes flooded in Valdosta, and this is just in some cases gonna stay bad, may get a little worse. I'm hopeful, not a guarantee, but I'm hopeful maybe it won't get a lot worse. But if this were to kind of start to strengthen back up as it came into town, it could. And it's already really bad, so. A tricky pattern for sure to forecast and track. I mean, if this were to somehow fill back in and come right through town and not really wiggle off its path, we'd be talking about, I mean, I don't think it's going to happen like that, but I'm just saying, if this all, came through and every time it got in here, it was turning red. This would be, one of the worst flood threats we've ever had around our region. I don't think it's going to do that, though, because that would take a lot meteorologically, though. Not really moving this banding, but I don't think it's going to hold together or strengthen back up to that level. But earlier on, it wasn't really looking like it would re-strengthen, and it did it over the worst possible area. I mean, that's the thing. If this falls in a more rural area, this much rain can kind of sort of be handled. You'll get probably a considerable warning, like we've seen in some of these areas around it, but not maybe a catastrophic warning, but the fits has just been right into a very populated area at night, and that's why it took that turn for the worst here with the flash flood emergency around Valdosta. So, still one of the worst flood threats we've seen in a while, but if, on the off chance that all this were to just keep, coming in here, not really like moving off one way or the other with this, I mean, as I look back, I mean, if things just kind of train in and still are heavy, you get reds to kind of fill back in over and over again. In theory, it could be one of our worst flood threats we've seen in our 62 counties in many years. I mean, outside of storm surge, of course, from a hurricane, that's a whole different story. I mean, it's not nothing tonight. I can't imagine coming anywhere close with, the Adalia, or obviously this year with the Hurricane Helene. In terms of that storm surge toward the Gulf Coast, you don't get 15 feet of water out here, obviously, like what they had on the coast there. That's a different kind of flooding there, and that's something that's very rare as well. It's just that was at least a little bit easier to kind of warn people about and to get them out ahead of time. It's not so much. I mean, this is the kind of issue you had just on a lot lesser level, but in terms of the overall coverage and the significance, because it's not a mountain, but on a lesser, it's a example of how things kind of were so bad for Elaine. Folks want to evacuate and don't evacuate, head for flash flood or flooding like this necessarily from the rain. But here's our covered map. Warren Bradford, Stark, but this is where the flooding's a storyline and Lowndes of Valdosta. So nothing around Bradford. We had a little bit of rain on that Wednesday, but we cover our 62 counties here very carefully. I'm just based in Bradford. It's the only reason I'm mentioning it. But Lowndes is where the concern has been, and it still really is, so significant there. You see that our rain amount's a little bit less, but still significant. I mean, we have the other polygons in play as well, but still significant in the Valdosta there. It's not quite as heavy. I mean, you see if you look back here, I mean, this is 1140. I mean, you see it's just red all over the place. It's a little more splotchy now, especially in here, and even somewhat back out there. And if that can just kind of fade and this doesn't come in, that'd be great. And that's not out of the question. I've seen it happen before because the atmosphere just can't keep supporting dropping this much rain. But there's a lot of moisture, high precipitable water values. So see how much more the atmosphere can kind of, rain down to the ground in terms of this moisture here. So we're just going to continue to watch it. I think we're going to wrap it for now, but that doesn't mean the threat's over. It's not over by any stretch. It's just in a tornado situation. So, at some point, we're just repeating ourselves so much here. Of course, you can get the interactive radar when we're not on at cloudweather.com/radar here. And if we get more flash flood emergencies, if things really take that turn here again, maybe, in terms of it just worsening, if anything else in the same area, really worsening, and we'll pop back on in. Or if we get some really nasty concern in some other neighborhoods, we'll pop in. Of course, tornado warning, that's mandatory for us to come on with the very latest. But Facebook, Casey Cloud WX, Facebook Cloud Weather, Twitter /X at Cloud Casey, YouTube at Cloud Weather. You have Twitch Cloud Weather, and then cloudweather.com has all the links and the interactive radar available on the radar tab. So you can continue to keep tabs on the situation here that's very serious tonight. So I know, hopefully we don't have to pop back in, but we will if we need to. Otherwise, we'll be back on with another update late, coming up Thursday night. Formal update, late Thursday, early Friday update. We'll be looking ahead to that Veterans Day weekend forecast. So, this will be drier though. I mean, a lot of areas are still dry now, but others not so much. You need some rain in some areas, but this much rain is very, very detrimental, especially for Hurricane Helene victims that are just widespread in areas around Valdosta. So, not good. Stay tuned, stay safe. Remember, turn around, don't drown. Do not get yourself caught in a flood situation. That is so, so bad. So please be careful. Please stay safe. I'll take one more time for any questions or comments from any of the viewers at home. We already went over that tornado threat. Not too big of a deal as we look, but not completely zero. But the flood threat is extreme right now around Valdosta. Please take this seriously, because we don't want to see folks lose their life in a scenario like this. It's not out of the question. Things have gotten that bad. I mean, I'm thinking of bad flood events in the past. Not to that level that I'm about to bring up, but it just reminds you that there have been flood events, and that was tropical to red. But 94 Alberto caused 70 fatalities around Albany. That was more widespread and worse than this. But still, that was, we had, literally dozens of folks lose their life in that. Don't think we're going to have that tonight, but you could still have a few folks lose their life here if they get, caught up in this. Please play it safe. For now, have a great night. We'll pop back in if we need to. This is still a situation that's dangerous. So even though I'm going off, doesn't mean it is safe out there. You got to be very careful, and you got to heed the alerts here with this flash flood emergency remaining in effect for Valdosta, officially there, Lowndes County, that area within it, the city of Valdosta,